The film sets in the year 1665 in England, when the outstanding historical plague came about. Thousands of people died daily, and just a few lucky human beings continue to exist. On the same time, human beings theorize that the devil reasons the plague, and each person they believe of witchcraft is interrogated or performed. A female is arrested for being a witch. The scene then transitions to a lady named Grace, and a visible frown is gift on her face. Even as crying, Grace bends her knee and begins praying to God. Not long after, she takes a sword and goes outdoor the cottage. Out of doors, she sees her husband hanging on a rope, apparently dead. Grace then takes a shovel and begins digging a grave, while remembering her excellent recollections together with her husband. Going lower back to fact, Grace uses her sword to cut the rope, and places her husband in his grave. One of the husband's reminiscences famous the man's tormented by an epidemic. Even though Grace attempted her high-quality to treatment her dying husband, she could not do it. In reality, Grace cries heavily as she bids her remaining farewell to her husband. It's also found out that the husband devoted suicide to break out his suffering. Within the subsequent scene, Grace looks after her baby whilst respecting her overdue husband. A landlord then comes to the scene to speak with Grace. The owner doubts Grace that she might be able to pay her lease, due to the fact her husband is now dead. Nonetheless, Grace promises that she will be able to find a way to pay the rent. Within the cottage, Grace misses her husband as she hugs his final garments off him. Unexpectedly, Grace desires of her husband. However, she wakes up and screams out loud, when she sees her husband lifeless once more inside the dream. Inside the subsequent scene, Grace meets along with her buddies to console each different. Grace says she desires to go to the town, however her pal fast warns her not to do it, due to the fact the plague is universal there. However, she says she wishes to take the chance because she has something crucial to do. The buddy gives to attend to her infant whilst Grace is out on the town. She is going to a bar in which her husband is a normal. Grace then asks the person in the bar to permit her to get a small loan. But, the man refuses and says the times are difficult. He additionally says that a woman become arrested, due to the fact the human beings accused her of being a witch. He advises Grace to leave the city as quickly as possible. But, Grace stays by inquiring for facts approximately what came about, whilst her husband entered the city the day he got the plague. He says that the husband got here for a drink, and he by accident drank a stranger's cup with the sickness, which also inflamed him. Grace asks the person wherein he knew the data, and the person replies that he got it from the owner. However, it is also discovered within the subsequent scene that someone swapped her husband's cup with the ill man or woman's cup, implying that a man desired Grace's husband to be infected. Grace hallucinates at domestic as she sees her lifeless husband alive and talks to her. She follows her husband outdoor, and the rope leads her to the grave. As she pulls the rope, the body of her lifeless husband comes out from the grave, and Grace takes the marriage ring off of him. The next day, the landlord involves the cottage to collect the rent fee. Grace then takes the marriage ring and offers it to the landlord, pronouncing it should purchase them 3 months of live inside the residence. The landlord is impressed, but does now not believe Grace will discover a manner to pay the lease. Sad, Grace also takes her personal wedding ring to pay every other 3 months of rent. The owner then creepily says Grace should pay the lease through her hormones. Getting uncomfortable, Grace desires the owner out of the residence, however the guy refuses. The landlord then smashes the door, trying to force his hormones onto Grace. Combating again, Grace punches the landlord inside the face, and the owner retaliates. Whilst on the floor, the owner attempts to take gain of the scenario, but fortuitously, Grace burns the owner's hand. Moreover, Grace takes a shotgun and forces the landlord to leave her residence. Although the owner leaves, he guarantees that he'll get revenge in the future. In the subsequent scene, Grace remembers the memory of talking along with her husband. She said the guards forcibly took her mother whilst she was still a child. This reveals that the female in the first scene became Grace's mother. She additionally said that the witch hunter sentenced her mother to death, because of the accusation of being a witch. The owner is going to the bar to take his frustrations out. Obviously, he persuades humans in the bar to accept as true with that Grace is a witch and makes a percent with the Satan. By way of midnight, Grace senses something outdoor the house, so she takes the shotgun and goes outside to check it. All at once, a masked medical doctor comes into the residence, saying they accuse Grace of being a witch. Grace then is going to the attic to cozy herself. But, the physician randomly pokes his sword at the attic, trying to hit Grace. The medical doctors mild the house on fire and escape the area. Because the medical doctors watched the residence burn, Grace escapes to the opposite aspect of the residence. However, her pal's husband catches her within the forest, and takes her to the landlord. Grace screams as she's being arrested, and sees her child being taken far from her. The docs then take Grace to the town and take her to the dungeons. Inside the subsequent scene, Grace's captor confesses to his spouse that he stuck Grace to shield their family from the owner. Suddenly, Grace starts to have nightmares once more. She rises from her bed whilst she feels something behind her. She sees the dungeon gate open randomly with none purpose. The hallucination continues as she sees her dead mother in the front of her. However, the mother quickly disintegrates into flames, which makes Grace startled and wake up from the nightmare. In a while, Grace talks with a fellow girl prisoner. The female says the guards kept beating her, until she confessed to her crime. Meanwhile, a crazy prisoner additionally speaks approximately random matters and faith. Tomorrow, the human beings take Grace out of the dungeon, and bring her to the execution post. A person hits her from in the back of, making her sense so much pain. Suddenly, the landlord offers help in change for Grace's body. He mentions the name of the well-known witch hunter. He advises Grace to confess before she receives completed, however she stands her ground and refuses. Then it is visible that the witch hunter is now on the manor to the town. Meanwhile, the loopy prisoner says something about the stop of the world, and someone called Death involves the city. The witch hunter then directly is going to Grace to test on her. Once more, Grace is having a nightmare. In her dream, she sees the Satan's presence going more potent. When she wakes up, she screams as she slowly is going loopy. The following day, the witch hunter suggests all the evidence of Grace being a witch. He asks Grace why she persists in claiming that she's harmless. He commands the nuns to examine Grace's body. The nun sees a mark on Grace's neck, and the witch hunter says it's far the devil's mark. This famous that the devil goes via Grace's thoughts with all of the nightmares, and he puts the mark on her neck. In the meantime, the witch hunter guarantees the owner that he'll make Grace confess. At the same time as drowsing, Grace is going into another nightmare. She sees her dead husband, and they start having an intimate moment. But, the romance stops while the devil abruptly enters the scene and scratches her neck. In the meantime, Grace wakes up while the defend throws her ice bloodless water. When Grace touches her neck, she realizes that the wound from her nightmare is also found in truth. All at once, one in all the type personnel offers Grace data approximately her taken infant. The following day, Grace and the witch hunter confront each other again. The witch hunter says he examines the dying of Grace's husband, and finds out that he died of suicide. He additionally says that he heard that Grace's husband became good and godly, and he thinks that he would no longer devote a sin if he did now not marry a witch. He then persuades Grace to admit, and blames her for sending her husband to hell. The witch hunter orders to torture Grace for her confession. After the bloody torture, Grace nonetheless stands her ground, and fights for the reality that she is harmless. Within the night time, the witch hunter orders to torture Grace for her confession. After the bloody torture, Grace nonetheless stands her ground, and fights for the reality that she is harmless. Within the night time, the Satan goes via Grace's mind again. This reveals that what Grace has been seeing in her nightmares is not his husband, but the Satan disguised as him. Whilst Grace discovers the Satan's scheme and denies him, the devil receives angry. Inside the subsequent scene, the witch hunter's assistant wakes Grace up. The assistant then interrogates Grace about her reference to the Satan. She also says that she has long passed through the identical suffering earlier than, and claims that the witch hunter showed her the fact and salvation. She persuades Grace to confess and end her suffering. However, Grace hallucinates once more, and she sees her mother announcing to free herself from all of the burdens she has been carrying. This exhibits that the Satan couldn't simply disguise himself as her husband, however as her mother too. Her husband additionally comes to the scene to influence her. But, the Satan comes, and Charm's attention returns to reality. Irritated, Grace asks the assistant how many ladies were burned to loss of life, just because they accuse them of being a witch. Angry, the assistant calls the guards and orders them to lock Grace up. Within the next scene, the SORT team of workers offers Grace meals with a hidden message. The message says that her baby is secure and she or he must have her. Day after today, they create Grace into the court docket to do the trial. The witch hunter says that Grace's sin may be very heavy as she makes fornication with the devil. Ultimately, the witch hunter gives Grace the last danger to confess. However, Grace remains silent and stands her floor. He then takes a torture weapon to threaten Grace if she remains silent. But, it appears useless as Grace is not afflicted. Grace additionally says that her will is more potent than the witch hunter, which makes the witch hunter feel very threatened. So he orders his assistant to torture Grace. The assistant Speedy puts the torture weapon into Grace's non-public part. Grace screams in agony as she stories the most ache in her existence. After the bloody torture, Grace stays silent and does now not confess. The witch hunter then sentences Grace to loss of life due to malfeasance. The owner gets indignant because the witch hunter promised him a confession. Unbothered, the witch hunter additionally says that they must execute her child. After listening to about her toddler, Grace cries heavily, fearing the death of her baby. Within the next scene, Grace's buddy quarrels along with her selfish husband. The pal says that her husband is a coward, and blames him for Grace's state of affairs. The buddy then pushes her husband, and in retaliation, her husband punches her inside the face, and begins choking his spouse. To fight back, the friend is going for her husband's eyes, beautiful him. She then takes a stone and throws it at the Ferrari horse. The pony then movements and runs over the husband. The weight of the Ferrari carriage flattens the husband's bloody face. In the meantime, Grace asks the kind team of workers what they may do to the dead frame of the unwell prisoner. The staff says that they will unload it as quickly as possible. To make a plan, Grace tells the team of workers that she plans to escape with her child, and desires the personnel to help her. She then asks for an assembly with the witch hunter. The SORT staff goes to take a bottle of the dead unwell prisoner's blood, even as Grace and the witch hunter confront every different, and Grace says she will be able to confess on simplest one condition. The group of workers then mixes the ill man's blood with the witch hunter's wine. This implies Grace's plan to contaminate him with the plague. Grace says that her circumstance is the life of her baby. She says she will confess if they permit her infant to live freely. The witch hunter consents, however wishes his assistant to attend to the toddler to make certain her salvation. The type personnel comes to the room with the inflamed wine. Grace and the child separate while the assistant takes the baby away. Grace and the witch hunter then speak to each different formally. The witch hunter desires each of them to drink the wine to honor their deal. At the beginning, Grace declines as she is aware of that the wine is infected, however the witch hunter could now not need to drink alone. Leaving without a desire, she agrees to drink the wine, so she will preserve with the plan. Both of them drink it. The witch hunter then dares Grace to confess her sins proper earlier than him. Grace bends the knee, and says that she will confess something. Fooling the person, Grace says she confesses that she's now not a witch. She then takes a knife, and makes use of it to stab the witch hunter's hand, making him scream in ache. She also takes the other hand to make the witch hunter unable to move. She then confides to the witch hunter that he made her watch her mom burn to dying even as she became nonetheless younger, and that the witch hunter has victimized many innocent women. Grace also tells him the wine is infected with the plague, stunning the witch hunter. Meanwhile, the SWORD team of workers sneaks into the landlord's room and takes Grace's child efficaciously. All of a sudden, the owner wakes up, but the kind body of workers assaults him, inflicting him to lose awareness. Inside the room, the assistant involves the scene and assaults Grace. Both of them engage in melee fight to fight for their lifestyles. Simply as Grace is ready to be killed, she grabs a stable object and smashes it to the assistant's head. The item is flammable, and the assistant begins burning to demise as she jumps out of the constructing. A defend comes into the room, however the kind workforce saves her from impending death. As the building burns down, Grace and the type staff get away, however Grace shall we the team of workers and the child move without her as she closes the gate. She motives that she will be able to die besides because she drank the wine. But, the SWORD personnel says the wine changed into no longer infected, because the owner swapped his personal wine for the witch hunter. Understanding approximately the records, Grace adjustments her mind and wants to break out. However, it's already too overdue. Losing hope, she instructs the type body of workers to deliver the toddler to her dependent pal. Grace runs as fast as feasible, and grabs weapons to defend her from the guards. Without hesitation, she takes a shotgun and kills the protect that attempts to capture her. She then takes the keys to one of the guards to free the alternative prisoners. However, the landlord catches one of the prisoners, and he kills her with a gun. The owner and Style fight each other, however the ultimate prisoner enables Grace, resulting in Grace stabbing a pointy wood into the landlord's stomach. To finish the owner, Grace takes a sword and decapitates the landlord. In the meantime, the witch hunter is slowly burning to dying. Abruptly, Grace longs for her lifeless husband, and she sees his presence, encouraging her to break out the fortress. The following day, the type group of workers brings the infant to Grace's pal. The pal takes the infant, and that they break out to a secure place. The scene slowly fades away as Grace escapes the citadel, and walks her way towards her hard-fought and deserving freedom. And the end. If you are a lover of similar content like this, take a look at my distinct videos, and if you love it, please break the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification horn, catch sight of you in the successive video.